Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Olo and today I have a different video to our usual content. This is a discussion about potential DLC. DLC in Elden Ring is becoming more of a big topic as many players have worked their way through the main story now and are wondering what's next for the game in terms of content. Now before we get into all of this, I obviously want to state that this is spoiler-filled discussion and territory, so do not watch if that's something that will bother you. But anyway, if you aren't aware, most From Software titles from the Soulsborne series have had big DLC updates after their initial launch, adding entirely new regions to explore alongside important story updates. The story or lore is often tied to what we originally experienced in the main release, and can be even hinted at in the main game. We've had incredible examples of great DLCs, like one of my favourite DLCs ever with Dark Souls 1, and of course Artorias and his descent to madness while facing the Abyss. One of my favourite characters in any game. All the incredible old hunters of Bloodborne, the Ringed City DLC, places with huge areas and new story to enjoy. Often having some of the best boss fights for sure. The thing is, with Elden Ring being the biggest game they've ever released, you have to expect that the DLC that hopefully is coming is of equal scale. Perhaps maybe the biggest DLC they'll ever release. We've seen secrets of the current world thanks to people using things like Cheat Engine to explore areas they've not meant to be able to go, and also of course Datamine files that reveal unused content, voice lines, and maybe even content to be used in DLC. We're going to take a look at some of that today, but I'm also going to give you my three main theories to what the DLC could actually involve. Naturally, this is speculation based on what we've seen in the original game, so I could be wrong, but it is fun to talk about. I'm sure you guys have your own thoughts to add to this too, but let's get started with the possible location of the DLC. When you've unveiled the map in full, there's this massive cloud in the middle of the water, bang on in the middle of the whole map. That would be a good spot for a whole region, wouldn't it? There's more than enough space to work there, and it would perfectly fit into the map as it currently is. Of course, that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. They have lots of room to use in the underworld, or they could just slap new regions on the side of our current map and that'd be fine. It'd grow in size like maybe how it did in your original playthrough. But it does make you think, what could be there hidden by that cloud? Something talked about in regards to this then, not long after initial release actually, was how while there is this cloud in the middle, there's also all the towers of the world that when you put them together and line them up, they point to the middle of the world and at that cloud. And if you were to go to the location there in the middle of the world, using maybe the torrent flying trick, or literally just fly there with Cheat Engine if that's something you're willing to do, there's something interesting there. A massive square, a sort of tile, that is missing from the world. Very unusual to see something like that in this game, almost as if it was something intentionally removed from that location. Now, when we look at that tile, I have to admit, it's pretty small, all things considered. I don't think it's big enough to be a true space for something huge, but that location, the area around it, the whole water, it could be a good place to do something with an update. Let's move on then to what the possible DLC could involve. Starting with my top pick or most likely option, Miquella, the child of Radagon and Marika, who is found in-game stuck in a cocoon. Mohg, as we know in the lore, took Miquella from the Halig tree, which was Miquella's attempt to grow a tree that could perhaps purge the rot from Malenia. In that area, we can see that Miquella was ripped from the very core of the tree, which seemed to have served as a womb for this attempt. We then go on to find Miquella in that cocoon, where Mohg was attempting to resolve Miquella's problem for his own purposes, taking Miquella from this child state that he is stuck in, and a demigod state, to a full adult and true godhood. Mohg wants to create his own dynasty as the consort to Miquella, so once Miquella was fully grown and god in true, he could use that to his own purposes. Now obviously we get in the way of that through this optional content, but you know, it is optional, it's not tied to the story, so it could be that lore-wise this wasn't stopped, or maybe it was and it doesn't matter. If we look at Mohg and Miquella in the opening cinematic scene, in which Mohg is carrying the very small Miquella, you can actually see how small he is, quite frail, the body of a child obviously. And if we have a look at the statue you find hidden away in the Altus Plateau region, we can find a statue of Malenia and Miquella embracing, where Miquella is once again small child, even though they're twins of equal age. And yet, that arm peeking out from the cocoon of Mohg that Miquella is in to help him grow and reach true god status, well, that arm is quite long and large, much larger than that we see of the child. Basically, I think Mohg's attempt was actually working, and obviously we interrupt that in a form, but it is optional, so maybe we didn't. So maybe in DLC, Miquella could successfully grow and become a relevant threat to the world. As we know, Miquella, despite that demigod status and the child body, was very powerful and was able to actually grow the massive Halig tree with his own blood, so he had great power and potential. Even Gideon, the all-knowing, confirms that Miquella is in slumber rather than dead right now. But he states that all will be well as long as Miquella remains in that slumber. It seems he's aware that Miquella would pose a threat. Now, interestingly, there was another version of Miquella that we do not see in game, a body in the cocoon that had the files of even hair and clothing, either a placeholder for what's actually in that cocoon for the arm, or what Miquella has come to be currently. And there's also cut dialogue via a datamine said by Malenia, which says this: "Sweet tarnished, dearest companion, did you not heed my warning? Your greed knows no end. You would steal the last drop of warmth from his empty frame. After all you've taken, you still want more. Then you will have to kill me. I am Malenia, sword of Miquella, and I have never known defeat." Quite the important cut conversation, isn't it? Seems like maybe that was said when you first encounter Malenia before the womb of the tree, where you actually fight her in the boss arena. From that dialogue, it certainly sounds like Malenia has interacted with you in some way before you fight her originally, which is not the case in the current game. Maybe she's referring to us taking remembrances from defeated Shardbearers, you know, when she's saying the whole steal the last drop of warmth from Miquella. Ultimately though, she is against us and our plans. And another final detail from the datamines, actually, is a unique weapon we don't see in the full release. A Twinblade that's tied to Malenia and Miquella. It captures the pair in an important way. A weapon of abundance and decay, symbolizing the two. And it makes you wonder, why were these things cut? Or maybe they haven't been, and there's more to come. In any case, Miquella is a mysterious character with a goal we may or may not have stopped. And if you want to learn more about this and see some visual examples, I definitely recommend the great YouTube channel Garden of Eyes to learn more. They've been using cut content to make some great videos. Anyway, I could see Miquella being a big part of a DLC if that were to happen. But now let's move on to Rykard and his serpent family. To cut to the chase, Rykard, another child of Radagon, could be a major player in possible DLC. You see, when you defeat him, when he's combined with that snake, he doesn't actually die, and he even says so himself. He says this when you defeat him: "No one will hold him captive, that a serpent never dies." And if you return to the boss area after that, you will actually find Tanith and Rykard, who seems still half alive, just with his head a bit caved in. And Tanith is literally eating his body, informing us when we speak to her that she's trying to give him another body to find purchase within. Just as he lived within the body of the snake, she wants him to live within her. Now, perhaps he could regenerate, maybe even on his own, and she's just trying to speed it up. I mean, he says he can never die, right? And it seems very believable because he's like still alive when we come back here. But in any case, Rykard is the Lord of Blasphemy. He wants to devour the gods, which, yeah, the process that he took to make that happen, that disturbed a lot of his own men, and they even left his service. Rykard actually has a great and very interesting history, but after he let himself be consumed by the Great Serpent, who I believe is called Igle, which is the name of the church you find at the Volcano Manor, that's a church to the serpent after all, and there's even a statue of Igle inside, or maybe even possibly discarded snake skin that it shed, which is very gross. But yeah, together, I think they changed, both of them. Rykard being overpowered by the hunger of the snake who wants to consume, and then the snake maybe being overpowered by Rykard's will, specifically against the gods and the current order of things. Using that raw power, Rykard wants to consume specific things rather than maybe everything that Igle must have. Plus, there's also the Patches story that's ended on a cliffhanger so far. He asked you to give Tanith her castanets, that he has for some reason, to let her remember who she was or is, and I think he might even have feelings for her. He then disappears, while Tanith, when you give her those castanets, basically rejects them as if they're not important to her anymore. So surely this storyline between the three characters, Rykard, Tanith and Patches, could continue if we saw a DLC. Either way, I think Rykard and his god-hunting family could be something to continue in future storyline. But speaking of god-hunting, my last current theory on a DLC is the God Hunters. Those that wear the skin of the gods they hunt, the royals we find in some interesting places. One, for example, is in the area of Rykard, or even the duo in the area of the dragons, right, Faramazula, and the former Elden Lord, Placidusax. They serve their own queen, the DUSK-EYED Queen specifically. And while people currently debate who the DUSK-EYED Queen could be from the characters we know in game, what is important to know is that there were civilizations before everything that we know, before the Erd Tree was what it was, before the current order of the Elden Beast sent by the Greater Will. There was still a situation here, people lived here, and it would seem that the Godskin royals and their queen were brought to heel by Malekith, the Shadow of Marika. The Queen's sword, the Godslayer's greatsword, on its description says, well, this was her sword, and she controlled the Godskins, and in turn was defeated by Malekith. This group of god hunters existed in the original time of Marika, maybe even before. This was before the Shattering, and ultimately were defeated. Yet, they're still around. Yeah, in slim numbers, but in important places. Could they be hunting Rykard, or working with him? Their plans to hunt the gods align. And then another question, right? Who was or is the Dusk-Eyed Queen? Some actually think that it could even be your maiden, Melina, who, yeah, looks creepy as hell in the Madness ending. And there's a lot of questions about, you know, Ranni, the Snow Witch that taught Ranni, who Ranni's puppet actually looks very similar to and is designed after, who looks really similar to Melina, actually. But we're not getting into that in this video. There's plenty of theories about who the Dusk-Eyed Queen could be or could have been. The whole history of the Lands Between is massive. Long before the Elden Beast and the Greater Will were involved. The civilizations before the events that we see in our game could be brought into relevance. But there you have it. Those are my three main theories for who and what could be involved when it comes to possible DLC, and even maybe where. There is a lot more I would like to talk about, but I have to keep it brief for this video. So yeah, my question to you guys is this. Is there DLC coming? And who or what would be involved, do you think? If you'd like to see more videos like this, you know, theories and lore discussion, please drop a like on the video so I know I can make them. But for now, I've been Hollow and you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.